Porridge, 1974 to 1977, remains one of Britain's most beloved sitcoms, celebrated for its sharp wit and unforgettable characters that won the hearts of audiences across generations. The comedic brilliance of prison life at HMP Slade, brought to life by a talented cast, made the series a timeless classic. Yet, behind the scenes, the real lives of its stars were marked by sorrow, suffering, and tragedy. When the laughter faded, they faced incurable illnesses, sudden accidents, and untimely death shrouded in mystery. The stark contrast between their on-screen humor and off-screen hardships is a heartbreaking tale few have ever heard. In this deep dive, we uncover the untold stories of the Porridge cast, stories of struggle, pain, and loss that shaped their fates. What happened when the cameras stopped rolling? What hidden tragedies haunted them until the very end? Join us as we reveal the somber truth behind the smiles and explore the heartbreaking final chapters of those who brought Porridge to life. Ronnie Barker was born on September 25, 1929, a comedic genius whose impeccable timing and masterful delivery made him one of Britain's most cherished entertainers. As Norman Stanley Fletcher, the roguish yet endearing inmate in Porridge, Barker created a character that resonated deeply with audiences. His sharp wit and irreverence made Fletcher a lovable rogue rather than a hardened criminal. But behind the laughter, Barker was a deeply private and often conflicted man. Though adored by millions, he struggled with the burdens of fame, yearning for a simpler life away from the relentless demands of television. His marriage to his wife, Joy, remained stable, yet his relentless work schedule often kept him away from his family. After decades of success in The Two Ronnies and Open All Hours, he shocked the nation by retiring in 1987, citing exhaustion and a desire to escape the pressures of celebrity. His later years were marked by a retreat into quiet anonymity, running an antique shop in Oxfordshire, far removed from the limelight. Yet, even in seclusion, his health deteriorated. Heart disease, the cruel thief of breath and vitality, slowly tightened its grip on him. By 2005, his body could take no more, and he passed away from heart failure at the age of 76. The world of British comedy mourned, but for Barker, perhaps there was solace in slipping away quietly, as he had always wished. Eric Dodson entered the world in 1920, only to leave it burdened with the shadows of war and the relentless march of time. As Mr. Banyard in Porridge, he was but a small cog in the machine, a fleeting presence in the lives of the incarcerated. Yet his own battles were not fought within prison walls, but on the stage and screen, where he carved out a career as a character actor in films like The Winds of War, 1983, and Lily, 1978. His life was one of quiet dedication, but not of grand acclaim. The limelight never truly embraced him. Instead, he lingered on its edges, a familiar face in a sea of forgotten names. His later years brought no renaissance, no glorious return. Illness crept upon him, an unseen enemy, sapping his strength and eroding his presence. By 2000, death claimed him, the final curtain descending in silence. No great tributes, no headlines, just the echoes of a career that once was, and the quiet sorrow of a life that flickered and faded. Brian Wilde was born on June 13, 1927, a man whose gentle demeanor belied the quiet struggles that marked his life and career. As Mr. Barrowclough, the well-meaning yet utterly ineffectual prison officer in Porridge, Wilde provided the perfect contrast to the stricter, more authoritarian figures within HMP Slade. His portrayal of the bumbling yet kind-hearted guard brought a warmth to the series, making him a beloved fixture in British television. But while he exuded an affable charm on screen, his career was often one of unfulfilled potential. Despite his talents, Wilde frequently found himself in the shadow of more dominant personalities. Even when he achieved further recognition as the pompous yet endearing Foggy Dewhurst in Last of the Summer Wine, tensions behind the scenes and his dissatisfaction with the industry led to his intermittent departures from the show. His home life, though largely private, was marked by long periods of absence due to his demanding career, leaving him at times estranged from the normalcy he might have wished for. As the years passed, his body began to fail him. A serious fall in 2007 left him weakened, his frailty a stark contrast to the lively characters he once portrayed. In March 2008, pneumonia set in, cruelly robbing him of his final breaths. He died at the age of 80, his passing a quiet one, much like the man himself, never the loudest voice in the room, but always a presence that lingered long after he was gone. Patricia Brake came into this world in 1942, her talent as radiant as the smile that made Ingrid Fletcher, the long-suffering daughter of Norman Stanley Fletcher, so endearing in Porridge and its sequel, Going Straight. She was a light in that bleak prison world, her presence a symbol of hope and warmth. Yet life off-screen was not always so kind. Though she found success on stage and television, weaving through decades of British drama, from Coronation Street to Doctors, her personal life carried shadows. Marriages that promised joy fractured, the weight of time and change pulling them apart. In the twilight of her years, illness came knocking, a silent, merciless thief that stole her strength. In May 2022, cancer claimed her too, leaving those who loved her to weep for the light that had flickered out. She had given so much, laughter, love, performances filled with heart, and in return, the world repaid her with a quiet, heartbreaking exit. Maurice Denham was born in 1909, his voice carrying the weight of 100 characters before his face ever graced the screen. In Porridge, he was Raleigh, the aging, upper-class inmate who clung to faded grandeur behind prison walls. It was a role that mirrored Denham's own life in some cruel way, always the distinguished gentleman, but never truly free. His career spanned decades, lending his rich, velvety tones to Animal Farm, 1954, and his weary dignity to The Day of the Jackal, 1973, but behind the refined exterior lay a man marked by loss. His wife, Margaret, was his anchor, yet even love could not halt time's slow cruelty. As he aged, the loneliness crept in, like a tide swallowing the shore. By the late 1990s, his body failed him. The final years were not kind, and in 2002, he succumbed to complications of old age. The world moved on, as it always does, but somewhere in the ether, his voice still lingers, a ghost of a man who played so many, yet in the end, had only himself. Fulton Mackay was born on August 12, 1922, a man of stern discipline both in life and on screen. As the unyielding and authoritarian Mr. Mackay in Porridge, he embodied the relentless, no-nonsense prison officer whose rigid adherence to rules often made him the perfect foil to Fletcher's scheming charm. Yet, behind his strict on-screen persona lay a deeply introspective and complex man, one whose life was shaped by duty and an unshakable sense of order. A former soldier, Mackay carried the weight of wartime discipline throughout his career, often struggling to separate the rigid structure of his roles from his personal life. His marriage to Sheila Manahan was strong, but their union remained childless, leaving a quiet void in their lives. Despite finding immense success in television, including roles in Local Hero and Gideon's Way, Mackay never quite found the lasting peace he sought. The stage and screen demanded his all, and in 1987, his body betrayed him. Stomach cancer, a slow, merciless disease, gripped him with a cruelty that no amount of discipline could fight. As he faded away, his once powerful voice grew weak, the commanding presence that had once dominated screens reduced to whispers of pain. He passed away on June 6, 1987, a man who had spent his life enforcing rules, only to succumb to the one force that no man can control, time. Peter Jeffrey was born in 1929, his voice dripping with authority, his presence demanding attention. As Mr. Wainwright in Porridge, he embodied the cold, bureaucratic indifference of the prison system, a man who followed the rules but never questioned their purpose. His career stretched across the golden age of British television and film, his talents gracing the adventures of Baron Munchausen, 1988, and If, 1968. Yet true stardom eluded him, as if fate had deemed him forever in the shadows of greater names. Away from the screen, his life was not one of grand scandal but of quiet, unspoken struggles. His health declined as the years wore on, the strength in his commanding frame ebbing away. Cancer took him in 1999, an unrelenting, merciless foe that cared nothing for his talent, his legacy, or the lives he had touched. The world barely paused to mourn. No grand eulogies, no national sorrow, Just another name fading from memory, another voice lost to time. Dudley Sutton came into the world in 1933, a rebel in spirit and a rogue in heart. He played Reg Irwin in Porridge, but it was as the mischievous Tinker Dylan Lovejoy that he truly etched himself into the minds of audiences. His career was a patchwork of brilliance and chaos, from The Leather Boys, 1964, where he dared to challenge societal norms, to countless roles that showcased his unique, restless energy. But life off-screen was never simple. His personal demons followed him like shadows, failed relationships and heartache punctuating the years. He loved deeply, yet love rarely stayed. In his final years, the defiance in his eyes dimmed, the fire within him burning lower with each passing day. Cancer came for him in 2018, an enemy even he could not charm or outwit. He fought as he always had, but the battle was not his to win. When he left this world, he took with him the spirit of a man who had lived loudly, loved recklessly, and yet, in the end, had to face the quiet of mortality alone. Richard Beckinsale was born on July 6, 1947, a bright young talent whose time in the world was heartbreakingly short. As Lenny Godbeer, the naive but kind-hearted young inmate in Porridge, he brought a softness to the harsh prison walls, his gentle humor and boyish optimism making him a character that audiences adored. His success soared further with Rising Damp, where his charm made him one of Britain's most beloved sitcom stars. But beneath the warm smile and effortless comedic timing, Beckinsale was a man running out of time, though he never knew it. His marriage to actress Judy Lowe seemed idyllic, and together they had a daughter, Kate Beckinsale, who would later become a star in her own right. But happiness was fleeting. Exhaustion plagued him, his body hinting at a deeper struggle that remained undiagnosed. The demands of television took their toll, but no one, not even Richard himself, realized how serious his condition was. On the night of March 18, 1979, he went to bed, never to wake again. A heart attack, silent and cruel, stole him away at just 31 years old. The world was left in shock. How could someone so full of life be gone so suddenly? His young daughter would grow up without her father, his friends and fans left mourning a talent that should have graced screens for decades. The tragedy of Richard Beckinsale was not just in his death, but in all the years of laughter and love that were so cruelly taken from him, leaving behind only echoes of what could have been. John Bennett, 1928 to 2005. The son of a hard-working London family, John David Bennett came into the world in 1928, a child of a Britain still reeling from the Great War. Though known to fans of Porridge as the no-nonsense medical officer, his face graced the screens of many iconic British television shows, his voice always carrying an air of quiet authority. From Doctor Who to Claudius, he was a chameleon of the small screen, forever slipping into roles that left an imprint on the minds of audiences, but never quite earning him the full recognition he deserved. His career was steady, but perhaps never as celebrated as it should have been. Life was not always kind to Bennett. Though devoted to his craft, his personal world was one of shadows, struggles with self-doubt, and the loneliness that so often haunts the character actor. When he passed away in 2005, his death was not accompanied by great fanfare or lavish tributes. Instead, it was a quiet departure, one that echoed the quiet perseverance with which he had lived. The circumstances of his final days remain largely unspoken, a melancholic footnote in the annals of British television history. Brian Glover, 1934. A hard-faced brute of a man on screen, but behind the rough exterior of Heslop and Porridge, Brian Glover was a complex soul, battling demons that even his burly frame could not fend off. Born in Sheffield, the son of a wrestler, his early years were spent in the shadow of his father's triumphs, never quite able to step out from under them. A schoolteacher before turning to acting, his gruff Yorkshire voice became his signature in films like Kess, 1969, where he played the unyielding sports teacher, and in American Werewolf in London, 1981, where his presence loomed like an omen of doom. But life outside the camera was less triumphant. Marriages strained under the weight of his temper, and fame never truly brought happiness. In 1997, cancer took him. It was an undignified end for a man who had spent his career towering over others, his body betraying him as he withered into something unrecognizable. Those who knew him remember his sharp wit and even sharper fists, but also the loneliness that lingered in his eyes, a sadness that no amount of stage lights could dispel. Peter Vaughan, 1923. There was always something unsettling about Peter Vaughan, an aura of quiet menace that made his portrayal of Harry Grout in Porridge so chilling. He was a master of intimidation, his calm, calculating voice carrying the weight of unspoken threats. But off-screen, Vaughan was a man caught between worlds, a devoted actor but a husband who struggled to balance love and ambition. His roles in Straw Dogs, 1971, Brazil, 1985, and later Game of Thrones as Maester Aemon cemented his legacy, yet he remained haunted by the sacrifices demanded of him. His marriage to Billie Whitelaw ended in heartbreak, two actors unable to share the same stage of life. Even his second wife, Lilias Walker, knew the darkness that sometimes clouded his spirit. Old age came for him slowly, taking his sight first, then his strength, until finally, in 2016, at 93, the last of his fire was extinguished. No tragedy, no great scandal, just the slow, inevitable fading of a man who once held audiences in his grasp with a mere glance. And perhaps that is the cruelest fate of all, to be feared and revered in life, only to slip into death unnoticed, the shadows swallowing the legend whole. Graham Crowden, 1922 to 2010. Born into the turmoil of post-World War I Britain in 1922, Clement Graham Crowden was a man of extraordinary wit and presence. In Porridge, he briefly donned the role of the prison doctor, his eccentric, almost mischievous demeanor bringing a peculiar levity to the otherwise dreary prison setting. But beyond this small role, Crowden was a staple of British film and television, with a career spanning 1968, a very peculiar practice, and the delightfully whimsical Waiting for God. His performances often danced between comedic brilliance and tragic depth, mirroring a life filled with both light and shadow. His marriage to actress Phyllida Hewitt was long-lasting, a rare beacon of stability in an industry fraught with fleeting connections. Yet even a love as enduring as theirs could not shield him from the ravages of time. Though he lived to the age of 87, his later years saw him retreat from the stage and screen, the vibrancy of his earlier performances slowly giving way to the inevitable fading of the spotlight. When death finally came in 2010, it took with it one of Britain's most unique theatrical voices, leaving behind an echo of laughter and loss, a reminder of the cruel passage of time that takes even the brightest among us. Sam Kelly, 1943 to 2014. There was something inherently warm about Sam Kelly, something in the way his eyes crinkled with mischief, in the way his voice lilted with humor, even when playing the slow-witted but good-hearted Warren in Porridge. Born in 1943, Roger Michael Kelly, his full name, seldom used, paved a career in television and theater that should have brought him unending contentment. And yet, life has a way of stealing joy from those who seem most deserving of it. For years, Sam was a quiet, reserved man off-screen, his private life largely obscured by the characters he played. A steadfast bachelor, he never married, never had children, and though he had a long-term partner in the actress and writer Patricia Leviton, theirs was a life lived away from prying eyes, without the domestic normality that others took for granted. His career flourished. He delighted audiences in Allo Allo, as Captain Hans Geering, and brought his charm to On the Up, Barbara, and later Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005. But in his later years, illness cast a long shadow over him. In 2014, fate struck its cruelest blow. Diagnosed with cancer, Sam's final months were a battle fought with quiet dignity. But behind closed doors, the ravages of the disease took everything from him. The energy that once made him a vibrant performer, the light that made him beloved by so many. In the end, he slipped away in a hospice, his last days a whisper of the boisterous life he had once led. No fanfare, no grand goodbye, just a quiet, fading heartbeat in a world that barely seemed to notice the loss of a man who had brought laughter to millions. Ronald Lacey was born in 1935, a man of a face so uniquely villainous that it became his curse and his calling. In Porridge, he played Harris, the sniveling, sneaky inmate who slithered through the prison corridors like a rat scurrying for scraps. But beyond the bars of Slade Prison, Lacey's career flourished in a gallery of grotesques. None more infamous than the sadistic, flesh-melting Major Tote in Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981, a role that cemented him as the embodiment of creeping evil. Yet behind the sinister grin, life dealt him cruel hands. His first marriage collapsed, leaving behind scars unseen. His health, too, betrayed him. A lifelong smoker, cancer wrapped its fingers around him, gnawing at his organs until, in 1991, it claimed him. The final act of his life was played out in suffering, his last days spent ravaged by the very disease he could not outrun. He left behind children, but no grand fanfare, just a whisper of the wicked laughter that once echoed on screens across the world. Michael Barrington, 1924 to 1988. Michael Barrington played the ineffectual, fussy Governor Venables in Porridge, his clipped speech and nervous energy making him the perfect foil to the wily prisoners under his charge. It was a role that seemed to fit him too well, a man constantly out of his depth, a man whose best intentions were always undermined by his own nature. But behind the camera, Michael's life was a quiet tragedy, a series of struggles and misfortunes that shaped his final years. Born in 1924, Barrington, his real name was Michael Farrington, had a career that never quite reached the heights it should have. Though he appeared in respected productions like The Avengers and Z Cars, he was always on the periphery, never the leading man, always the supporting player. Off-screen, his life was even more troubled. Struggling with ill health for much of his later years, he was diagnosed with a heart condition that left him weak and dependent on care. And so, as the world moved on, Barrington faded into obscurity. By the time he passed away in 1988, aged just 64, there were no grand tributes, no tearful farewells on television. His name slipped from memory. His face became one of those half-remembered figures of British television history. He had spent his career playing a man overlooked and undermined, and in the bitterest irony of all, that was how his own life ended, quietly and largely forgotten. What do you think about the deaths of the actors in Porridge, and who do you miss the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with the latest videos.